what you look in a candidate when you hire someone, and you have generally 1 hour to interview somebody, and you have
Yeah.
to make a call.
Yeah, no, this is this is an interesting question. I mean, like the reason I actually laugh about this, right, is I have actually substantially changed my opinion on this over the
Ah,
years.
very good. I want to hear it.
So first, for the listeners who are actually looking for a job, I'll give the I suppose the textbook answer in terms of what they need to plan for, right? And then I'll
Mhm.
come over to my own thinking and what's changed, right?
Right.
I think if you're a developer looking for the next job and things like that, I think one of the things that you need to do is to have a very so like you need to be strong technically, right? So if basically you have to be strong in the technology that the company is looking to hire in. So
Mhm.
if you are if they're looking to hire in, let's say, .NET or Azure, you need to be familiar with Azure. If they're looking to hire in C Sharp or whatever it is, you need to know all the the language, the new language features and things like that. You got to make sure that you're on top of it, because when you go into an interview, they're going to ask these questions.
Yeah.
They may ask you questions like, hey, how is garbage collection being done, right? So you cannot basically say, well, sorry, I'm not familiar with those kind of concepts, right? So you need to make sure that you're strong in that. And there are lots of sites that you can actually go ahead and look at it, right? So you're going to look at it and say that it's almost like standard interview questions. And, look, and you need to be strong in those things, because a lot of companies will just go and ask these very specific questions on, talk to me about this feature in C Sharp and so on.
Mm.
The second thing I would say is, like, you got to get your basics right. So when we talk about basics, got to have a strong understanding of things like data structures and algorithms and computational complexity and all that kind of stuff. And I know companies like Microsoft and Google and Amazon, they will definitely ask you questions, right, about
Yeah.
how good you are with some of those things. And this only comes by, this is the theoretical part of it, and how you would actually apply that. And I mean, they may not ask you, come on, go and explain how a hash table works or something like that. They'll give you, I'm assuming you've been in Microsoft, you'll probably be able to say this, right, really well.
True.
It's like they'll ask you questions on how do you solve the problem, and they'll look for how you're using some of these data structures and algorithms to solve a certain kind of problem. So I think you need to have that, right? One of my pet peeves in in the IT industry is that we do have a lot of people who don't have an understanding of some of these basic concepts, right?
Mm. Mm.
And there is and it's kind of like created a very poor opinion about the industry itself externally. So the standard answer to the thing is like, have you started restarting the application, or have you shut down on have you shut down your machine and restart it again? That'll actually fix the problem. And imagine, never happens in another industry, right? I mean, you
Right.
don't basically go, someone, a doctor doesn't say, let's put this patient, let's make him clinically dead, and then we'll revive him again.
Yeah.
But in our industry, it's perfectly okay for something like that to happen, right?
Yeah.
And so much so, even if you watch movies, right, and then you go like, the space station is under threat. The thing that we need to do is we've got to shut down and reboot the system, and everything will be fine. Everything's running on software. I'm like, oh my god.
But this will start happening in the car now.
Yeah,
You
that's
do
right.
have to reboot the whole car sometime
Yeah,
because
absolutely right.
something is not working.
Yeah, because software, right? Because they're all
Yes.
running software in
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So sorry. I digress from where we started, right? I think for a lot of people, for aspiring candidates, following leaders within the industry, like particularly thought leaders, will do them a whole load of good. And look at what are the really cool things that's actually happening.
Mm.
Keeping in touch with technology and everything else um, that'll really help them. uh, See, increasing your profile will not hurt at all, right? I mean, like
True.
contributing to open source projects is a very good example. I mean, you can learn from looking at other people's code, and by contributing to open source projects, you have your name up, and people can actually look you up on GitHub, right? Just
Yeah.
like as they're looking you up on LinkedIn and things like that, right? They'll look you up on GitHub. So contributing to all these open source projects and everything else will be good. Posting regularly to, I think, even on LinkedIn or blogging. I'm not sure, blogging is kind of like died down a little bit, but still people still blog, and you still put yourself out there. When people Google your name, Bing your name, whatever it is, they still, they can see what you've been up to, and that'll increase your profile. You talk about branding and everything else that'll actually help you. I'll also say, if you have an opportunity to attend meetups and network with people and all that, that'll help. Doing talks and all that, all these things actually improve your profile, right? So once your profile is really good, I mean, finding a job, it's easier to find a job.
True.
Now, and this is, going back to, I think this kind of like answers the other thing that I was laughing about and why I've actually changed some of my opinion. And I think there are probably three parts to this question, right? First thing is like, this is the stock standard thing that people need to do to actually get a good job.
Mm-hmm.
The second part, I suppose, in your question is like, what is it that I look for people and people? And kind of like in a way that kind of like goes to this third part is like, what's changed in my own thinking about why some of these things are also what I actually said in the first place. And these are things is also wrong to a certain extent, right?
Mm.
In my mind, I look for, when I'm looking for a candidate, I look for passion. So the passionate, do they have the passion to learn things? And are they passionate about the product that they're working on? And so that, I think that is important. Of course, the first thing that I said is like, I think they need to have the core competency that the job requires. I mean, that's the first thing, maybe that's the first thing. And then the second thing is probably, the passion part. So the reason I say core competency is that not every organization has the ability to groom people and grow them. And so you start from you're just fresh out of university and things like that. They have enough people to support you, to help you learn on the job and grow and all that. So a lot of companies don't have that luxury of doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Literally, a lot of these people are thrown in the middle of a project because it's in chaos and say, look, we need you to come and help and so on, pick up the pieces and so on. So depending on the situation and so on, I always look for people with the right skills. So if I need someone if I'm deploying to Azure or AWS, I'm really looking for people with those skills, so they can come and help other people within the team, right? So so it depends on the situation, but I think that's one thing that I'll always look for, right? But the third thing that I'll look for is, I suppose, like these days is like around diversity of thought. And see, for a long time, I used to hire people that were very similar to me, right? So it's like, look, I said, like, look, I do things like I'm doing a lot of things outside of work hours, and I'm doing this and doing that. If I hire those kind of people, that'll be really good, right? And but I think people who are very similar to you, who or think very similar to you, is kind of like a big barrier in terms of growth and innovation and everything else. I mean, you need to have people who think differently and do things differently. So you need to kind of like have people come in and challenge some of the stuff. So that's why I think when we talk about diversity, I talk about things like people who come from a different, gender is an important one, different gender, different ethnic background, people who have different likes and dislikes, people who got a creative mindset, and people who are very analytical, right? Introverts, extroverts, right? The people who really like to sit quietly in a corner and do their stuff without, they kind of like draw their energy from within. And you have those extroverts kind of like need the energy from others to drive it. So you need to have those kind of combination of people. You need people, rather than actually saying yes to everything as a boss. If everyone's agreeing to everything, then you don't want that, right? You want people to actually challenge you, right? And then that all that is, I think, important. In fact, once someone actually came over to me and said, like, why have you hired this person? And both these people are reporting into me, and so like, why have I hired this person? It's always disruptive, it's always like questioning, and I said, like, that's because like nobody else is actually doing that. I specifically hired this person to actually challenge everyone.
True.
And it's not that every time he challenges, we're going to go with whatever he says, right? But bringing that additional element into this, right? And that is really important. And I think so I look for that, and I also So not only do we need these, like what I call these rock star developers, right? And we talk
Hmm.
about these 10x developers and so on and so forth, people who are really good at what they're doing, and productivity actually goes 10x times or something like that by these people having. Um, but you also need those people who bring things like empathy and creativity into the mix of things. So these are
True.
people who think, look, if you do these things, it's not going to help our customers kind of stuff. Because
Right.
these 10x developers may not have that mindset. It's like, oh, let's actually
Yes.
do this thing. This is, let's automate this. And I think that is that is really important, right?
Yes.
And kind of like going back to this original thing is like, what has actually changed in my mind is, it's funny enough, I think I saw this thread on Reddit a number of years ago, and it was about it was actually funny, but it was almost like it hit home some hard truths as well, right? It was about, I think, like what if we hired doctors like we hired software engineers or something like that, right? I think that
Hmm.
I can't remember the exact thing, but it was in the, I'm paraphrasing, or from memory.
Hmm.
And there are, I think, questions like, okay, so what do you do when you're not practicing medicine? What do you do in your spare time?
Hmm.
And do you perform surgeries during your spare time? Do you kind of like free consultation in for people and stuff like that? And you mean like you mean like not doing all of this without getting paid? And it's like, yeah, I mean, like, we are looing for passionate people who just don't do this for money. I'm like, they're making a point over there. We in the software industry have kind of like built this up that
Yes.
you have to be passionate. You should be doing all these things in extra hours because, like, hey, I do this thing. Everybody that I hire needs to do this thing,
Right.
and everybody's situation is different.
True.
All right. I mean, like they and situations different during different times within their lives.
Yes.
You may be single and you have a lot of time, and you spend all your evenings and nights coding stuff and everything else.
Right.
But then after a period of time, let's say you have kids or whatever it is, and you have family that you need to take care of, and and all these kind of things actually act on you, and you kind of like need to move away. You probably devoting time to your family and everything else, and that's perfectly okay,
True.
right?
True.
And so it is really important that we find the right person to help like this person should be able to contribute to the job,
Yeah.
right? And so this is why I say, like, look for things like, they have to have a core competency, and they should be passionate at what they're actually doing.
True.
And you need to hire different people, like, so you get the diversity of thought. But these are the three things that we should be doing,
Yes.
right? But unfortunately, the industry is very different. And the things that I actually quoted before, like, hey, go do these things, you got to, if getting a certification is important, go and get the certification, because it's going to help you get a job, right? Because
Yeah.
not every employer is going to go look for these three things, and you got to if you can find an employer who actually looks just for these passion, whether you have the passion and whether you're really good at what you're doing, then good on you, and that's what you need to focus on.
True.
But if you want to get a job easily, focus on these other things. So,
True, true. No, in fact, you showed a lot of maturity in your thinking, and I hope our audience, who is most probably our very young devs, are
mm,
listening to this interview. They should realize this. Uh, One is you talked something very, very important, and I want to underline it again because you talked about now when you're hiring, you are looking for diversity. You are not looking for people exactly like you, and you very well explain what is diversity. Diversity means not only how people can look differently, but how they can think differently. Diversity of thoughts, being introvert, extrovert, questioning the system. So all those things actually points out to be yourself, be who you are, because
mm,
that's fine too, because you are bringing diversity because the way you are. and
mm,
and after having the core competency, just stay, I will say that, be authentic and be
correct.
yourself, and
That's
that's
right.
that's a very, very important point. And yeah, thank you for talking about it and how you change your thinking. I think I'm also in same boat, uh, by myself, that once upon a time I used to think, if in your spare time you're not coding and contributing to open source, maybe you're not passionate. But uh, to keep your passion for long time, now I see myself like same like you. I'm in this industry for 25 plus years. You have to be doing different things on weekend
Yeah.
or evening to keep that fire going.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll just burn out very
Yeah.
soon. So
Yeah.
all very good points. So thank you for that.